I'm joined here today by MMA prospect Ramiz Brahimaj, who is obviously a hype prospect. Big things coming for him. Thanks so much for joining me, man. How are you?
I'm doing great, brother. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Thank you for asking. What's your current situation right now? I assume you're probably under lockdown in Texas.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I live on the outskirts of Dallas right now, so the lockdown is still pretty intense, but it's not as strict as like, for instance, New York City or other major cities. But it's still pretty bad over here. But I've still been working, still been trying to train as much as I can. Of course, a lot of resources are limited right now because of everything going on, but I'm still trying to get my training in.
And so, what's it like for you guys there? Do you have to sign a document before you leave the house and stuff, or is it just about making sure if you get caught that you're doing something you're allowed to do?
I mean, it's not that strict yet, to my knowledge. We still can move around pretty freely. I don't know how it is in other countries or, I mean, out of state, but I know that over here, they say that I've heard instances of cops pulling people over, but for me personally, I haven't been pulled over by any law enforcement. Thankfully,
And
I hope
so,
it stays that way.
right. And so, how's it affecting you as a professional athlete? Because I'm sure you got to eat a certain way, you got to train a certain way. I assume a lot of that stuff is messed up for you.
I mean, yeah, the training aspect, but as far as the diet and stuff like that, I've always been very disciplined. I never let myself balloon up. Even in between fights, I never was a big fan of that. Earlier on in my career, when I didn't know much about dieting and stuff like that, it would happen. But in terms of right now, no, not really. I've been still pretty stringent on my diet, eating well, drinking tons of water, and still getting my runs in 100% because that's something that's always helped me keep the weight off running my long distances.
And so we do know that you're from Texas, but obviously your name doesn't sound like a Texas name, man. What's the
No,
origin of your
definitely
name?
not. So I'm not even from Texas originally. I moved here in
Ah, see.
2000, and I moved here in 2007 from Bronx, New York. But originally, my family, they're from Eastern Europe. They're from Kosovo. They're a small country
Ah, yeah.
called Kosovo.
Yeah, Kosovo. The reason I know that is from soccer. Like they made their national team recently, so I was
Yeah.
paying attention to
Yeah, they
all the
got some
players.
good players, man. But I'm
Yeah,
definitely wasn't raised up to be a soccer player 100%, man. That stuff is too hard for me. I have family members over there in Europe that are very good at it, and I mean that play in. I had a couple of family members that played in some leagues in Germany, but as far as me, man, no way. I can't. I'm not that good.
and well, I mean, you're still a professional athlete though. You're a fighter, so it's like
Yeah,
you still
fair
get to be
trade,
there.
right? Fair
Yeah,
trade.
100%. What's it like when you tell people that you have family that's from there? I assume it's a lot of question marks, and then people that don't understand where that is.
Big time. This has been something that's not new to me at all.
Right.
Whenever I tell them Kosovo or Albania, they always say, "Oh, Armenia, where's that?" And I'm like, "No, no, no. I'm not Armenian. I'm
Right.
Albanian, but it's an Eastern European country, and it's it's a relatively new country, and
Right.
it was plagued by war during the '90s, and thankfully, a lot of that stuff is behind us. And I mean, there's still troubles now, but
Right.
like I was saying." Whenever I tell people, of course, their first initial reaction is like a big question mark. They're like, "What are you talking about?" It sounds like something off of like a Star Wars movie or something. Some mythical land.
And so, have you been there before? Are you able to go now? What's kind of your relationship with the country?
Absolutely. I was there in 2003. Shortly after the war had broke out, my father, he was a contractor with the Department of Defense, so he went over there on a mission to help liberate Kosovo, and I was there in 2003, again in 2007, and then my most recent visit was in 2017. So, I mean, of course, it's a little bit harder to go back as much as I want because, prior to this whole COVID-19 happening,
Right.
tickets were pretty expensive, and I mean, it definitely is. It's a very time-consuming trip because it's not
Yeah.
like a direct flight that you can go straight into Kosovo. You usually make connecting or transferring flights to get there. So, I mean, definitely, hopefully, in the future, once there's some regulations and stuff back in play, I would love to go visit more, and especially once I get into the UFC and start making a name for myself, I would love to do seminars and stuff out there, and definitely give back to the people over there.
That would for sure be a cool thing. You mentioned the UFC, and we know they do the Reebok Kids with the countries and the flags. You think you'd be the first guy to be repping Kosovo?
I think so, honestly. I know
Yeah.
Ilir Latifi, he
Where's that?
represents
Albania.
Albania.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he represents Albania. And I would love to do something joint like that because I know a lot of, if you ask a lot of ethnic Kosovars which flag they would rather use, they'd rather use the Albanian flag because that's like something somewhat of a unity thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So a lot of Albanians they have close ties to that flag, and it represents a lot of trial and struggle, and it's something that we hold near and dear to our hearts.
100%. So I do want to talk to your career a little bit. Start off at the top. How did you get into MMA?
Man, when I was a little boy, my father, he always growing up in the Bronx, it was not really nice and stuff like that over there. And it was a little rough upbringing. But my dad always wanted me to know how to defend myself no matter what. So he signed me up for like boxing, karate, and a lot of the stuff that I used to do when I was a kid was just basically my dad just wanting me to know how to defend myself. And as I started to get older, I just grew a love for it. You know what I mean? And watching old UFC events, Pride events, and kickboxing, boxing. Just that was basically in my household. We used to watch Mike Tyson fight, and all of that stuff. It was just embedded in my life. You know what I mean? So for me to grow into this, of course, it's not the number one career choice that my mother and father wished for me.
Right.
Definitely not. I'm sure that they'd rather me be a doctor or
Yeah.
a engineer or something like that, of course.
Right.
But they definitely support me with this decision 100%. And like I said, it feels like something that just came naturally to me and something that I truly loved. I truly loved and cherished a lot.
And so, looking at your amateur record, I believe there's only two fights on there. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but
No,
why
it
is
is. It
your
is.
why was your amateur career so short and the jump to the
Um,
pros?
so I'm gonna be honest with you. Prior to prior to me going full steam ahead and training with Coach Safe, I was training out of a gym close to one of my hometowns over here on the outskirts of Dallas. And my coach at the time, he was like, "Hey, what do you think about fighting an amateur fight?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Let me test the waters and let me see what happens." And I remember my first amateur fight, man. As soon as it happened, I TKO'd the guy in the second round, and I was just hooked from there on. And
Yeah.
I had one more amateur fight, and then I remember my coach at the time, he came up to me. He's like, "Hey, what do you think about going pro? At least you get paid for it." And I was like, "Yeah, I want to get paid for this stuff. Even if it's
Right.
not a lot of money, I want to at least make something off of these fights. I don't want to keep fighting for free because I don't know about any other states or any other countries or anything, but over here, the amateurs they don't make nothing.
Yeah.
So when
Right.
you fight for free. You don't. I heard of some promotions that give their fighters ticket sales, but no, that wasn't the case for me.
Yeah.
Everything I did was for free. So I was like, yeah, definitely want to make a jump to the pros.
For sure. What was your goal when you jumped into the pros? Is it like a lot of guys where they eventually see themselves as UFC champion? I mean, what was it that was driving you into the pros?
Um, just the love that I had for the competition, man. It's something that I've always believed in is that if you do something, you're either going to do it 100% all in or don't do it at all. You see what I'm saying? So it's something that I knew that the second that I jumped into the pro level, I was like, this is something that I want to do. And uh, as you know, MMA is not a long-lived career. It's not something that you do for the rest of your life. So I just knew that I didn't want to waste no more time with the amateurs, and I knew that the second that I jumped to the pros, I just wanted to go straight ahead and, make a run and try to get into the UFC, and of course leave my mark and make a run in the UFC as well.
And so, are you full time in MMA, or is it safe to assume you have a job on the side?
As of right now, I do have a job. I just actually started working at a warehouse, Costco over here, and
Ah,
because it was really hard, man. For 2 weeks, I was out of work because I would teach classes at Fortis, and I also had clients. But of course, the second that a lot of these restrictions started happening, the first places that were actually closed were the gyms. And
yeah.
prior to the restrictions actually hitting, Coach Safety actually closed down Fortis MMA a week prior to anything like that happening, just for safety precautions, which I completely understand. But of course, it leaves me out of work, and I'm just a worker type of guy. I love keeping myself busy. If I'm not training, I like to work. And back then, at the time, prior to COVID-19, I was definitely training people, teaching classes, and my clientele was fairly good. But of course, it's highly understandable that people, would rather be inside right now and worrying for their health. Their priorities are in the right places, so I can't really blame them.
And so, how's it been for you training at a camp like Fortis? Of course, you mentioned Coach Safe. I mean, we know that's a gym, full of killers. At one point, people were like, it's got the potential, and now it's one of the top gyms. Did you know that going in that it was going to become a top gym?
So basically, even prior to Fortis, I knew that it was a top team. We used to train at a different gym in Dallas, but we still had the same core group of guys and Coach Safe as well. And I always knew that the sky was the limit for each and every single one of us. So going into Fortis MMA, it was just basically our home, a brand new stable for us, and it was our home. So like I said, I knew that it was going to skyrocket. And it's funny because people think that Fortis just came on the scene. Yes, the team, the gym technically did. The name Fortis MMA did.
Right.
It's still relatively new, of course, but like I said, the core group of guys has been there, and we've been together for quite some time now.
I mean, do you feel like Fortis and even your coaches and everything, do you think they're getting the respect they deserve in MMA? Because I feel like everybody's talking about all the fighters there, the coaches, a lot more than they were, just a few years ago.
Now, of course, and like I said, that's definitely something that makes me happy to see people speaking of all of my teammates and my coach, and it's just all the hard work that every single one of us puts in there. And like I said, time tells all. And as I've said before, we're not. A lot of our fighters and our team and our coach, we're not people that talk much. We just get in there, we get
Right.
to work, and we just put the work in, and then the results show for themselves. So, like I said, of course, that's a process that's going to definitely take time, and it's understandable because, whenever you speak, whenever you talk trash, you market yourself more, and people are more interested in that versus just the quiet people just coming to work. But of course, I'll tell you one thing though: people always tune in to watch fights. Um, with those people that they know that are always going to show up. So I mean, uh, I'm not much of a talker myself, but that's just my belief system is that no matter what you do, if you talk, of course you're going to get notoriety and publicity a lot quicker than somebody who just works and lets their work do the talking for them.
And you did mention that the UFC was a goal for you, and we see that you're rising fast and you've got a good-looking record. Has there been any talk of, potentially getting on a short notice card or even something like the Contender Series?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was scheduled to be on the Contender Series last year. I was supposed to main event the second week, second episode of season 3. But unfortunately, due to a medical condition, the UFC medical team, whenever they did the MRIs of my brain, they found a tumor in orbit with my eye, and it was pretty close to my brain as well. So they had to remove it because the last thing that they wanted was it to rupture in a fight. And
Right.
crazy thing is, I never even knew that I had it. Through all my amateur and my pro fights, sparring sessions, and exhibition matches or whatever else that I had, competitions, I never knew that I had something. It never messed with my vision. It never did anything like that. So I got it removed. Thank God. Everything was good. The process went great. And I'm back in action. And in terms of short notice calls, yes, whenever the UFC was looking to cancel the UFC London card and looking to relocate it to America, I was actually contacted uh, by that, and of course, unfortunately, everything fell through. But like I said, I'm not opposed to taking a short notice call up in the UFC or even the Contender Series. To me, anything I can get is good. And like I said, my dreams, my aspirations are to make a run once I get into the UFC, get planted in there, and make a name for myself, and secure a future for myself and for my family.
And so, from what you're saying, it sounds like the UFC is in contact with you a lot. It seems like it's close. Do you feel like it's close for you at this point? Like it's just a matter of going out there and getting noticed?
It could be that. It could be the Contender Series. Like I said, as of right now, there is no telling what's going to happen next, especially with the
Right.
state of with the state of the whole world. This is not just this is not just America. This is the entire world. And there really is no telling what's going to happen next. To be honest, that's why I'm just keeping an open mind about everything. Be it short notice fight, be it me going through the Contender Series. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just mentally preparing myself for anything. You see what I'm saying? I placed myself in a position to where I envision myself being in the UFC, making my debut. I envision myself on the Contender Series. I envision myself in any way, shape, or form being at that stage.
All right, so I have just one last question. I know it's a
Yes,
tough
sir.
one with everything that's going on, but realistically, when do you think we'll see you back out there again in the cage?
Man, I'm praying. I'm praying if things in the MMA world and the world in general start to turn, because I know that we're probably not going to have fans or audiences for that matter.
Right.
But if we do start to fight, and from what I'm hearing, it is to happen in the summer, then fingers crossed and prayers up that I could be back in action in the summertime. If not, I mean, I'm just going to continue to train, and I'm just going to just wait for my time to come.
All right, well, hopefully that time will come soon. It sounds
Hopefully
like it
soon, brother.
will. All right, well, thanks so much for the time, man. I really appreciate it, especially all the struggles you went through with Skype. I really appreciate it.
Don't worry about it, brother. Thank you very much, man. I really appreciate your time.